Well, good morning to you all, or g'day, curd nerds. Welcome to another episode of Ask the Cheeseman. We'll just wait a little bit to make sure that YouTube's receiving the data. Looks like it is, which is good. Okay, looks like we're live. Fantastic. Let's start the show, shall we?
Well, g'day, curd nerds. G'day, curd nerds.
Well, g'day, curd nerds.
Well, g'day, curd nerds.
Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, welcome to episode 54 of Ask the Cheeseman. It's been a long ride. Apologies for last week. I was laid up in bed with a headache. It doesn't happen very often that I get laid up that bad, but this week, or last week, sorry, unfortunately I was, and it wasn't a pretty place to be in. But Kim looked after me like the lovely lady she is, and I got much better by Friday, which kind of took it out of me. Anyway, shout out to patrons this week. Thank you very much to Robert and Raymond for their kind pledges, ongoing pledges on Patreon to support the show. Some of the cheeses that I'm working on this week, I'm hoping to have either raclette or Cheshire ready for the weekend, as in the video. I've been working on both those cheeses. Also, I've got a behind the scenes video when I was filming the Cheshire that I made on the weekend. So I think that's pretty good. Well, I think it's okay. I won't say it's pretty good. We'll see what your response is, of course. But yeah, it's good to see behind the scenes stuff, stuff that you don't normally see when I'm filming a cheese video. So that's pretty cool. So, alrighty. So let's get on with it. Don't forget, as always, if you want to, down there, yeah, the super chat, little dollar sign, if you want to donate during the show, that would be absolutely fantastic. That's a one-off donation, unlike Patreon, which is a monthly pledge to keep the show going. So we'll get on with people's questions. I'm not sure how many we've got. It says we've got 13, but it's probably more than that. Okay. Somebody had a question up the top here. Randa said, good morning. How to manufacture slides cheese in home? I think you mean cheese slices. You don't. You don't make cheese slices at home. That's one of the worst things you can possibly make at home. Why would you? When there are absolutely thousands of different types of cheeses that you can make at home in your own kitchen. Cheese slices would be the absolute last thing I make. In fact, it would be my swan song. If I ever made a cheese slices video, then everybody stop watching. I ask you. All right, that means I've stooped down to the absolute minimum of cheese making. So no cheese slices there. NKY, aka Jason says, I have two good questions. Oh, you've forgotten them. All right, that's no good. So the next absolute question is from Jimmy, and good morning, Jimmy. What are the absolute basics to start cheese making, as in equipment or ingredients? Please amplify on that, and I can answer that a little bit better. Kivo asks, what's the first kind of cheese I ever made? The first cheese I ever made was feta, and it was a pretty poor imitation of a feta. I actually went on a cheese making course myself way back when in 2009. And it was with these two lovely ladies. And this is actually in the first chapter of my ebook, Keep Calm and Make Cheese. Two ladies called Dorothy and Lorraine, and they came from an area of Victoria called Gippsland. Gippsland's well known for its dairy farms and cheese making background. Anyway, they came along to our local community house, and I set up I booked the course and attended. And the crazy thing was that there was about 8 people on the course, and they actually just had a whole bunch of recipes, and they said pick which one you want. And at that stage, that's a crazy thing to do for somebody who's never made cheese before, because what happens is, because you don't know what's good and what's bad, or easy or hard, you pick any cheese you like. So I chose feta, which was a little bit more complicated. Well, actually, it wasn't as complicated. Some people picked Parmesan, some people picked Wensleydale, and goodness me, since I've made those cheeses myself, they're not easy, right? So it's it was just it was a bit of a disaster. To press the cheese, they actually used a car jack upside down. So they squeezed the absolute life out of the cheese. So at the end of the course, you could actually get to take the cheese home. That was their one and only pressing. So, look, it did taste okay. And from there, I actually caught the cheese bug, because I bought a really basic cheese kit from them. It was a bit of cheesecloth, some mesophilic starter culture, and some rennet. And I'd used that within the first month. Um, and then I went looking for cheese making equipment and stuff and supplies, and I found that they were fairly scarce here in Australia. So that was one of the reasons we actually sell some of the stuff on our site, Little Green Workshops. Okay, hopefully that answered your question. So it was feta, and it was a rough cow's milk version. Anyway, Joy says, I like the Cheese Cave video. It is sure full up. Thanks for showing us. No problems whatsoever, Joy. Many people had asked for that, and it's quite popular. Popular. I released it Monday morning. Uh, Monday morning my time here in Melbourne. And besides YouTube demonetization for about 6 hours, it seemed to go smoothly. Um, but it's had over 3,500 views so far. So in 2 days, so that's pretty good. I'm really pleased with that. Okay, Jimmy says ingredients. What are the absolute ingredients? So you'll need, well, it depends on the cheese you're going to make, right? So absolute minimum, if you want to make any sort of cheese, I would go an aromatic mesophilic culture, a mesophilic culture, some cheesecloth, a thermometer, um, cheese basket. You'll need a stainless steel pot. I've actually got a video on cheese making equipment, and if Kim can find that, then can you pop that up, please, darling? That will be absolutely fantastic, and Jimmy will see what sort of equipment and ingredients that you need. And of course, milk. A good source of milk, being unhomogenized. Okay, Danny. Hello, Danny. I made a wheel of Gruyere, and it has been in its maturation box for a week now. Just wondering if it's normal for the surface to feel slightly slimy between brine washes. Yes, it is. Absolutely normal. For most washed rind cheeses, that definitely is the case, especially with Gruyere being an alpine cheese. It's the only way that the rind is going to form. It's about um, half a centimetre. What's that? A quarter of an inch. You'll get the rind eventually. That's why we wash it so it dries out. Okay, Buzzinger says, "Hey Gavin, ever thought about making Comte?" I have. I do have a recipe for it. I'll pop it on my list. So many cheeses on this list. All right, cool. Lada says, "Can you add sausage meat to cheese and then age it?" Unfortunately, not, because it will rot in the cheese as it ages. The only time you can add meats and stuff like that is after the cheese has matured. And what they usually do is then mill the cheese again, and they add any flavors or textures or chilies or meat or whatever. I've even seen bacon bits added to it. And they compress it again. And because the maturation of the cheese is finished, they vac pack it and store it at 4 degrees Celsius. and put a really short shelf life on it, use by date. So that's how they get around that. MJ, hello to MJ from the UK. Deb, Deb says, I've been trying to make mozzarella the long way with culture. I've failed 4 times in a row. It will not stretch. Last time was left to ripen 2 days. Please help. I'm so frustrated. Um, Deb, do you have a pH meter or a pH test strips? The only way that you'll be able to figure out when it's ready to stretch is when it gets down to a pH of about 4.3 to 5 in that acidity range. You won't be able to stretch before, and you won't be able to stretch when it gets down to about 4.8 because it actually starts to go brittle. That's the only way you'll be able to tell. So hopefully that helps. There are pH test strip papers. We have some on our website. Any good cheese making supply will have something like that. Doggo says, what does it mean if there are cracks in the cheese? It usually means that the cheese is too dry, so you'll need to make sure it's waxed or vacuum packed. It's the only way to save a cracked cheese. Or you didn't press it hard enough during the pressing period. So there's 2 things that come to mind. Deep South Texas asks, do you have any insight into a Pirano recipe? It is said to be a Dutch cheese Gouda. I think it is Italian. No, I don't, but I will look it up. Pirano. Okay. Thanks, DST. Joy says, any advice about how to properly clean up vacuum pack bags for reuse? Boiling, vinegar, any process or procedure that you recommend? Yeah, I have reused them. If you make them a bit bigger than normal when you vacuum pack your cheese, it's about the only way you'll be able to reuse it because you've got to cut it off right at the seam with some really sharp scissors. And don't I have an issue with sharp scissors? Actually, I had one of my patrons send me a pair of very sharp Fisker brand scissors, thanks to KS. And yeah, he sent those through, and they were absolutely fantastic. But back to your question, Joy. Yeah, hot soapy water, first of all. And then what I would do is I would give them a spritz with vinegar and then rinse them out with hot water again. And then just turn them upside down until they dry on the inside. You may need to pop something up in there that's been sanitized as well to hold them up. But yeah, that's how I've done it before, and that seems to work. The hot soapy water just gets rid of any residue and stuff like that. The bag won't melt just in normal hot water out of the tap. So okay, NKY asks, have you ever had mold grow under your cheese wax using the lower heat method in a double boiler? Um, yeah, once I was making a stirred curd cheddar, or no, better known as a farmhouse cheddar. And I think it was really early on in the stage. And the reason that it grew mold underneath the cheese wax was because I didn't wait until the temperature of the wax was over about 70 degrees Celsius. So let me just convert that. Convert 70 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit.
158 degrees Fahrenheit.
So 158 degrees Fahrenheit. So I had to wait until, thanks Siri, appreciate that. Had to wait until the wax was at that temperature because anything lower than about 70 to 75 degrees Celsius or 158, the mold will still be active on the surface of your cheese after you've air dried it. So make sure it gets up to at least that temperature, and then when it hits the hot wax, it kills off those molds. So that's the best way to do it. You just got to make sure your wax is hot enough. Now, when you vac pack it, you're excluding all the air so the molds can't grow. So that's another way to get around it as well. Phyllis, hi, how are you? Senior Mr. Starfish. Oh, Senior Mr. Fish. G'day, Gavin. I was looking back over the other Ask the Cheeseman, and in number 11, a young lady mentioned a white Stilton, and I just made a blue Stilton. I wanted to know if the recipe is the same. Yes, it is. So white Stilton is basically blue Stilton without the Penicillium roqueforti. So it's a really creamy cheese, loose textured. And the good thing is that it lends well to adding in dried fruits and stuff like that. You'll probably see a lot of white Stilton in the UK. Does have a lot of additives, not bad ones, but dried fruit and things like that. It's a sweeter cheese, if that makes sense. It's exactly the same recipe. Leave out the Penicillium roqueforti. Okay, Jimmy says, would fresh milk work? A family friend has a small dairy farm that I could use. Yeah, definitely, absolutely. If you can get raw milk and you are happy with the quality of the milk, as in the family friend, their dairy is clean and the milk's treated and cooled down to 4 degrees Celsius or 39 Fahrenheit very quickly, then it's up to you. Your decision to use it. Um, if you think there is some issue with any quality of the milk, then pasteurize it using the low temperature long hold. And Kim, if you could just share that video around pasteurization, home pasteurization, that will be absolutely fantastic, and that'll help out Jimmy. So yeah, use that milk. That'd be fantastic. Adam says, I've made about 4 cheeses so far. My wife is already complaining about the cheese vinegar smells. What is Kim's biggest complaint to your cheese making? Fantastic question. Well, let me think. So when I make um, washed rind cheeses that have had Brevibacterium linens, and for those of you who have been making cheese for a little while and experimented with that bacteria, you'll know that it stinks a lot. It has the smell of uh, stinky socks. And when you open the cheese fridge door and you don't quite have the ripening box lid on properly, then it actually permeates the entire house. So that's Kim's biggest complaint. She does complain a lot when I'm making those washed rind cheeses. However, when she gets to taste the final product, she is more than happy for all of those bad smells that have gone and permeated through the house. So, unfortunately, um, I hope that answers your question, Adam. Ibazinga says, Gavin, I have another type of question. Where did you get the beautiful chair in the background? Um, Kim got it for me. So you'll have to ask her if Kim's got any ideas about where we got the chair in the background, which is also known as the cheesy chair of wisdom, by the way. When I did my earlier Ask the Cheesemans, um, yeah, it's just a quirky little piece that I like, and it's lovely to sit in when I'm relaxing and reading a cheese book. Okay, Bastig says, oh, sorry, Lala says, thanks for the question. Bastig says, do you have your own cheese business? If not, why? Okay, that's 2 questions. We do have a cheese business of sorts. So in Little Green Workshops, if you go to littlegreenworkshops.com.au, we actually teach cheese making courses for people who want to make their own cheese at home. And also we teach, I teach obviously with the videos online, and we also sell kits, not unlike the ones up there. So there's the mozzarella kit there and the fresh cheese kit. We have about 19 kits online. So that part of the cheese making business, yes, we definitely do have a small business. However, making our cheese for sale is a different kettle of fish entirely, because you have to go through so many regulations. You have to have a purpose-built kitchen, stainless steel equipment everywhere, and absolutely it is a pain in the bottom, plus a lot of money to get to that stage I was talking to a friend on one of the Facebook groups that I'm in, and he mentioned that it cost him over $20,000 Australian just to get set up and to make sure that I think it's Dairy Australia or Food Safe Australia did an inspection of the room that he purposely built on the back of his house to sell cheese at markets. So it's way out of our price range. I don't think it's, and I don't think I'd want to do it anyway. Making cheese, I make cheese for pleasure, and it's a hobby, and that hobby's kind of flowed on to a YouTube business as well as a selling kits business and stuff like that. But if I had to make cheese in large quantities and the pressure of getting them right every time, absolutely right, or you lose your livelihood. Um, it would just be too much pressure, and I think it'd take the fun out of it as well. So there you go. That's hopefully that answers your question. Danny says, my Gouda, I noticed a little whey has been released since I vac packed it. Will the cheese still develop calcium crystals as it matures for a year and isn't completely dry in its packaging? Yes, it should do. Sounds like there's a little bit too much moisture in there, but if it's only a little bit in lines, that's fine. It just normally would do that anyway. If you leave it for a year, Danny, you will get some calcium lactate crystals, which are absolutely the bomb when it comes down to eating 1 year old Gouda. It's delicious. Um, Mr. Fish again says, hi, g'day again. I made feta today with 2 gallons of milk. What's that? That's 8 litres. And I only had one mould available. So my question is, would I use more weight or longer pressing time? Thank you. You're the boss, Curd Nerd. Thank you very much. Um, I think that if you used more weight, then you won't get the texture of feta that you desire. With those little square baskets that I use, I only put on 2 kilograms of weight. So that's a 2 litre bottle or a 2 quart bottle, or if they exist, of full of water. So 1 litre of water equals 1 kilogram. So 2 kilos. So that's what I use, and sometimes I have to use up to 4 baskets, so a basket on top of each other, to make sure the bottle balance is steady. You may have difficulty. You may find that the feta you're making, if you press it too hard, you're going to lose a lot of the fat content. The whey's going to run cloudy throughout the pressing time, and it's going to be a lot firmer than what a normal feta would be. So just some advice there. I'm not saying don't do it, but that's what may happen if you press it too hard. Carol, lovely to see you, Carol. I've been brine washing like mad, but Florida is mold central, so I've been vacuum sealing most of my cheese. Is waxing better in your opinion? Um, Carol, really, it's much of a muchness. As you may have seen in the Cheese Cave video that I put out on the weekend or Monday, most of my cheeses are vacuum packed. Waxing is a little bit more laborious, and you can get mold growing underneath the wax if you don't get a proper seal. Sometimes it is hard. Look, I do nearly 3, 4 coats because I find 2 just don't cut the mustard. They end up getting a crack because you bump it in the fridge or something like that, and then mold just grows. What you're trying to do is exclude the air, obviously, to the cheese. Um, so yeah, look, it's exactly the same. Vac packing and waxing. I can't find any difference in taste. Um, so yeah, I suppose it'd be an awesome experiment um, if I basically, let me think. I'm trying to think. If I had an experiment when I made 2 cheeses at the same time, or split a batch in half and pressed it in smaller molds, and vac packed one and waxed the other, and that'd be a good experiment to see in flavour. Aged them for exactly the same time. So yeah, that's a good one. Vac packing versus waxing. I suppose one of the best cheeses to do that with would be one that ages fairly quickly. Gouda or Edam would be good candidates for that. or even maybe cheddar would mature long enough. I'm just trying to think something something cool that people would enjoy. Um, yeah, look, I think those two cheeses would probably work out, and I'd make the same cheese. So that's a great little experiment. Thanks, Carol, for your question. It's resulted in another video. Hopefully, I'll get around to making that one. Okay, Knight Rider 92 or K Rider, I think that's Knight Rider. Not here for a question, but to thank you for your awesome videos. Greetings from Germany, and by the way, the pronunciation of Butterkäse was quite funny. I probably stuffed that up. I should ask my son, who lives in Germany. Um, he lives in Cologne, so he would know how to say it properly. I have no idea. Anyway, Deb, hello, Deb. I'm using test strips, but I have been trying too soon, between 5 and 6 mark. I'll wait until around 4. Yeah, so hopefully the high end of 4. So it should be just under 5. So that's when you need to stretch the curd. Shlomo Ford. Hi, Gavin. Good night. Thanks for all of your films. How do you make a cheese cater? How do you make a cheese cater? I don't understand what a cheese cater is. Um, can you um, can you expand on that? Okay. Um, IT something 1044. Thanks, Gavin, for all the great videos. I was curious, what impact will using half a litre, half and half, with 2.5 litre whole milk have on yield and consistency? I think half and half, from what I've read, we don't have it here in Australia, is about 10% fat. So it's cream and milk. And I think um, people in the US use it in their coffee. Is that right? I'm not too sure. Um, so if someone can expand on what half and half fat content is, I'll be able to answer that question. Um, I'm aiming for a mozzarella or jack type of cheese. If it is a higher fat content cheese, then yeah, it'd probably work with mozzarella. Wouldn't work with Monterey Jack. It'd just be too creamy, and uh, it wouldn't have that slightly crumbly texture that Monterey Jack has. Thanks, Kim, for putting up the pasteurised stuff. Gail says, Gavin, what time is it there? From Worcester, Massachusetts. The time is 8:28 in the morning. Um, there you go, Kim. Thanks. I should have read ahead one. Jason says, or NKY, I have a go. I have a Havarti go bad. The smells were not good. Oh, so what happened? What do you think went wrong? Um, Hando Hand of Seeds. When is the time? Is it time to plant my tomatoes yet? Well, seeing this is not a tomato channel, but I don't know. Is it spring where you are? That's when you plant your tomatoes. After the last frost. And when the last frost is your guess as good as mine. Okay. Melissa says, can you make a fresh cheese out of whey? Um, well, the only fresh cheeses that I know that you can make out of whey is obviously ricotta, but it's got to be whey that is creamy looking. So basically, it's got to be whey that is left over from a cheese that's been set by rennet. Usually, the whey is a lot creamier. There's a lot more protein and casein left in there, and you'll be able to add some citric acid or some vinegar and make a ricotta or ricotta. Um, Another fresh cheese you can make out of whey is mysost, um, which is Norwegian brown cheese, a version of. And you reduce the whey down. There's a video actually I've made on mysost. Um, so And if Kim can put up the link, that'll be absolutely fantastic. Um, so yeah, my sauce is a absolutely delicious cheese. It's a bit like, I don't know, it's a like a um, it reduces so much in volume that all you've got left is the lactose. What's lactose is left, and protein, and it makes a really brown sort of cheese. And you can mix a couple of tablespoons of cream in it. It makes it really a creamy, sweet cheese, and it's actually spreadable. So it's actually delicious cheese, Melissa. So my sauce, I think we've got a video on that somewhere. Shlomo says, have you ever added bear to cheese? Oh, sorry. Have you ever added bear to cheese, and have you been in Israel? If not, you're invited. Thanks, Shlomo. No, I haven't added a bear to cheese. I'm not sure if your translation's good there. Yeah, no, sorry, don't understand. IT Liver 1044 says, oops, 2.5 gallons of whole milk and zero point 0.5 gallons of half and half. Once again, I don't know what half and half is, but if it's creamy, yes, that would work for mozzarella. Okay, Kim said, I bought the chair online. Yes, she did. Sal for Kingdom says, how can you extend the shelf life of cheese to 6 months or more? Let's say halloumi in vacuum shrink wrapping. Funny you should ask, because the very first halloumi that I made, um, it was made with cow's milk and not sheep or goat's milk. I vacuum packed 3 pieces, three fairly small pieces, and I found them back at the cheese compartment in our normal kitchen fridge. 3 years later, I found one, and I said, "Well, that's fair game." So I fried it up, and it tasted just as good as the day that I made it, because what had happened was all the salt that I'd put on the cheese had absorbed into the halloumi. It was fairly hard, but once you sliced it and then fried it in a frying pan with a little bit of olive oil, it went soft again. It was absolutely delicious. It was amazing. So that's how you can extend the shelf life of something like halloumi. Um, but you really can't do it for other fresh cheeses. Halloumi is one of the very few that I would do that to. Maybe paneer, but make sure that just at 4 degrees Celsius or 39 Fahrenheit in the kitchen fridge for that time, and you'll have no problems extending um, any shelf life of cheese. I've got cheese that is in vacuum packing. They've been sitting there, like I said, 3 years. For halloumi, I've got some bits of Gouda and Gruyere and Piora that are still sitting in the kitchen fridge, vacuum packed. They've been there for about over a year and a half now, so they'll be lovely, absolutely fine. Paulie the Second says, I'm building my own cheese cave. I like to build it out of wood. Any recommendations on wood type? Yeah, so the shelves that they usually use in cheese caves are pine. So get yourself some nice pine, not treated pine. Don't ever use that; it's poisonous. Just normal straight pine shelves, and your cheese just sits on top of the pine shelves. So, sorry, somebody at the door, I thought, but it's not. That's my dog. Danny says, why did the one-legged clown leave the cheese circus? Because he couldn't get his stilt on. My lord, well done. Okay. Where are we? Now I've seen that. Where are we? All right. Mia Sample says, I've also asked this on your channel comments. Sorry if you've already answered it. Or if this is a frequently asked. But we've got a cheese lover toddler, and as per dietary guidelines, try to limit salt. Any others that we might try to give her other than mascarpone, ricotta, paneer, and fresh mozzarella? I think there are low salt or low sodium cheeses, like they've done something with a cheddar or something like that. But they're not something you could probably make at home because I don't know the process of lowering salt, because salt is the preserving agent for cheese, right? You wouldn't be able to go past fresh cheeses. Maybe cream cheese would be absolutely lovely. You've got to put a little bit of salt in it, obviously, to give it some flavour. But cream cheese would be nice. A lovely goat sherv would be another one that's very nice, uh, and probably be fine because you only put a limited amount of salt in that as well. So fresh cheeses are probably the best ones. Okay, Melissa asked, "Can you make fresh cheese out of whey?" Didn't I just answer that? This is like Groundhog Day. Um, I did answer that. Yeah, my sauce. Um, okay, so he means a cheese cutter. Right. What was the question? Something about a cheese cutter. No, lost me. Sorry. Um, Hi from Greece. Hello to you. Yassils. Michael says, hey. Hello back. Drogo says, I've never had half and half in my coffee. Wonder what it's used for then. I don't know what half and half is. Mark says, awesome videos, Gavin. Heaps of information. Thanks for that. No problems at all. Melissa says, can you make a whipped cheese? I've never come across one. Whipped cream you can, obviously. And if you whip the cream too hard, what does it become? Anyone? Anyone? Butter. It becomes butter. Okay, MJ says you can start tomatoes in a greenhouse before the late frost. Yes, you can. Or you can start them inside if you've got a sunny, um, a well, in Australia it's a north-facing window. In the northern hemisphere it'll be a south-facing window that gets sunlight for some of the day. You can certainly plant out tomatoes in. Anyway, that's off the subject. Um, Blair says, I like stinky cheese, and so do I, Blair. I think stinky cheese is lovely. Um, it's one of those rare occasions that when you eat food, you ignore the smell completely because the taste and flavour is just absolutely divine. Okay. 1044 says half and half in coffee is the best. Slightly sweet without the sugary taste. In the US, whole milk is 3.5 milk fat, and half is between 10.5 and 18. My goodness, that is high. So to answer whoever's question it was at the start, yes, you could use mozzarella. You could use half and half a litre of that to boost the milk fat of your cheese to make a creamier cheese. You could probably do the same if you made Stilton, because you've actually got to add 250 millilitres, which is a cup of cream, to Stilton. That would make it creamier as well. So you could use half and half instead. Okay, so that's cool. Martin said, I think Shlomo meant beer. A beer cheese. Oh, okay. No. Well, you actually, yes, you can. I haven't made one. So there are many washed rind cheeses out there, so like Trappist type cheeses, very similar to the St. Paulin or Port Salut cheese that I made. And you can actually wash the rind with a dark ale. And what that tends to do is tends to make the rind taste a little bit different than what the actual cheese is. It actually keeps the bloom going, the orange bloom on the outside. So yes, you can wash your cheese in beer or ale. It does make for a very nice cheese. I have tasted an ale washed cheese before. Delightful it is. Okay. Where are we up to? I've missed all this bit or something. Mackie, I think that's how you pronounce it. I've watched your new video about your cheese cave. How do you regulate the temperature? Oh, sorry. And how you regulate the temperature, but how do you regulate the humidity if it's needed? Well, the humidity in the cheese fridge, and you might have noticed that there was water on one of the cheeses there. and that was because there's a drip tray underneath the freezer box. There's a little freezer box in that fridge, and the humidity created by all the cheeses I have in the ripening boxes, which is how I really maintain the humidity. That keeps it at about 90% just by having the lid on and the cheese in a box on a mat, so it's elevated, so any way that drips down the bottom just evaporates. So that's how you maintain the humidity in a cheese fridge if you don't want to regulate the humidity of the entire fridge. So ripening boxes are the way to go. But yeah, my cheese is fairly high humidity anyway because of that water that drips down from the freezer compartment when it defrosts, when it's not on. So yeah, it stays pretty high there. Sal Four Kingdoms says, is it okay to only use 2% salt on halloumi? Yeah, look, halloumi's great, and you can have as little or as much salt as you want. You'll just find that when you fry it, it won't have that classic halloumi taste. It'll just be a cheese that doesn't melt, but it'll be creamy and it'll taste just as nice, I think. Charlie, how are you? Brizzy girl, good morning. Where am I up to? Kim says, storm blowing outside. Yes, it is. It's quite windy and it's bucketing down with rain. Melissa, sounds good. Could you make up a video? Oh, I've got to remember what the video we were talking about. Melissa, butter. Could I make a butter? Yeah, I suppose. Butter's easy. So there's a couple of types of butters. So there's just normal butter where you whip the cream and bingo boingo, it tastes like bland butter, especially if you don't add any salt. The other form of butter is a cultured butter, which is quite big in Europe. And what they do, they add a little bit of mesophilic culture to the cream and they let that sit for 24 hours. And what it tends to do, it tends to split the cream into a curds and whey type thing because it's a lactic set. You drain off the whey and then you basically whip it like you would normal butter, but it has a better taste. It has a deeper flavour to it. So that's something you can do. I can probably make a cultured butter. We actually sell cultured butter kits. Cultured butter video, that'd be nice. Okay, Kim. Oh, cheese cutter. Thanks for all your films, Kim. Oh, okay. What's Kim doing repeating people? Okay, cool. John says from Greece, how do we use buttermilk? Can we use it to make cheese or as an enhancer of flavour? Well, there's two types of buttermilk as well. So the buttermilk is traditionally was the liquid that comes out of butter when you make it from cream. So that's buttermilk. There are no enzymes or anything like that or lactic bacteria in it unless you make it from raw milk, of course. However, the buttermilk that you find in stores these days tends to be cultured milk, and that's all it is. The good thing about that sort of buttermilk is the stuff that's in the supermarket shelf is that it actually has mesophilic starter culture that is still alive in the buttermilk. So you can actually use it as a starter for cheeses that use mesophilic culture. That's what I've heard. I've never made it myself, but I would probably use about 5% of the buttermilk to milk to get the bacteria count high enough so it would acidify the cheese in the amount of time that a normal recipe would say. So that's how you could use it. Okay, thanks for that, Michael. Half and half is half milk, half cream. Half and half in Canada is only 10%. Okay. Houses and horses. Hi, Gavin. Can you wax all hard cheese? I like to do that after so long because it's hard to keep humidities different in my small wine coolers. Yes, you can. Look, even though it says on most some cheeses, if you want to form a natural rind, then you should do that. So cheeses like Alpine cheeses like Gruyere or what's some of the other ones that I've done like that? Any of the wash rind cheeses, stuff like that. Look, basically, after about a month of washing, I kind of do the same thing myself. I'll vacuum pack the cheese because I think the rind's developed enough. And really, with the amount of cheeses that I'm making, it is so difficult to keep up. I'd be taking like 5 or 6 ripening boxes out of the fridge every day, or sorry, a couple of times a week, and then washing them and then putting back in again. When I think the flavours developed enough, then I'll try and dampen that down a little bit by excluding all the air. So yeah, you can wash, so you can wax most hard cheeses. So certainly don't wax any soft cheeses, of course, but yeah, hard cheeses no problems. Mackie says, awesome, thank you. No problems at all. Charlie says, where's Charlie's question gone? I've lost it. There we go. Gavin, have you thought about making a video showing good and bad molds on a cheese up close? Yeah, that's actually a good one because I've got as some people might have seen, I've got the ricotta salata has what I saw 3 types of mold growing on it. So I can try and get in close. I've got my camera here. So I'm using this is a Panasonic Lumix G7. Don't have a telephoto, don't have a macro lens on it, so I can't get too close. I think I can get about as close as 30 centimeters as it'll focus. So yeah, look, I can try and get as close as I possibly can. The trouble with getting really close to a subject to show what the molds look like and the little whiskers and all that sort of stuff is that you have to have a lot of light on the subject to be able to see that sort of stuff. So I'll give it a go. Molds close up. But yeah, I know it's got some good mold, and I think there's a dubious mold on that cheese. But anyhow, we'll see. But yeah, thanks for the suggestion, Charlie. Good one. 1040 says this group is awesome. No problems at all. Yes, it is. I think our community is a great little place to be on a Wednesday morning. I'm certainly enjoying it anyway. NKY says, have you done a sour cream video? Oh my God, the suggestions. No, I have not. But great place to start. Doggo2 says, what types of cheese has the shortest shelf life? I would say any fresh cheese. So any fresh cheese, the shelf life would be about 2 weeks tops because they're limited in salt. They don't go through a preserving or rotting period, which is, pardon me, basically the ripening period of a cheese is when the starter cultures break down into enzymes, and the enzymes attack the fats and turn into lipids. You don't have that with fresh cheeses. That's only happens on cheeses that are aged over a month. So 2 weeks tops for fresh cheese. There you go. Houses and Horses says, I mean humid. Yeah, that's all right. I didn't say humidites. Which you put in there. Melissa says, this group is fun. Yes, I know. I laugh at my own jokes, so that's fine. Mia says, thanks for answering. That salt question's been in my mind for a year now. You should have jumped on earlier, Mia. We could have answered that. No problems at all. Dame, oh, damn it, J. Kelly says, have you ever made a Dutch Belgian cheese? I'm new to your channel and absolutely love it. The channel or the cheese? No, I have not. Belgian. Belgian, is that how you spell it? Belegen, not Belgium. Belgian. No, I haven't, but I'll look it up. T. Surbos 2 says, I've made feta cheese, and after 1 month of maturation, have some cracks on the surface of the cheese. Is this bad? Also, the cheese leaves something like a burnt or something similar, burnt taste. I'd actually get rid of it. If you get something like that when you eat it, then something's not quite right. Remember when you make feta, they should always have it submerged in the brine if possible. If you can't, and there's a surface on the top, It should always be stored in brine. It shouldn't be stored any other way because the brine key is the preservative to keep the cheese intact and keep it from getting molds and going bad, that sort of stuff. So it sounds a bit suspect. Either that or if you've added any lipase to the cheese, then maybe you've added a little bit too much because lipase tends to make cheese have a piquant or spicy flavour, so you may have added too much lipase. Just a guess, but if it tastes like that, get rid of it. Okay, Marcus says, have you ever smoked your cheeses or have an opinion on smoked cheeses? I absolutely love smoked cheeses. Smoked hard cheeses are delightful. The closest I've ever got to a smoked cheese is a smoked flavored cheese. I used liquid smoke from a barbecue supplier, and that tasted really nice. I made a smoke flavored Gouda, and that absolutely was to die for. I could have put a little bit more smoky flavor in there, and it probably would have been even more awesome. But NKY, who's on the channel on the Chitty Chat at the moment, has sent through a link around uh, cold smoking cheese. So I'm going to check that out and have a go. I've been saying that for ages, smoked cheese, but look, time is short to make as many cheeses as possible before I pop my clogs, which is another term for kicking the bucket. Not that I'm going to in any near future. I'll keep making cheese. Mia says, by the way, finish. Oh, this is so hard to say. Lay Yost and Munyost might be interesting to make. If I remember rightly, that is Finnish coffee cheese. See if I got that right. Yes, it will be interesting to make. And you put it in the bottom of your coffee cup and it goes a little bit soft and you eat it. So I think I've got that right. Tell me if I am. Fever PA says, what is the bare minimum things kit that a beginner needs to buy to get started? Okay, you need a pot, you need a thermometer that reads either Celsius or Fahrenheit, both, hopefully. You'll also need a cheesecloth, a spoon to stir the milk with, and as far as equipment goes, that's probably about it, really. Oh, maybe a colander to drain, put the cheesecloth in to drain it, and then you'll be able to make a whole range of soft cheeses. So, yeah, do that. If not, heaps of kits. You can see up there that way. Sorry. Heaps of kits that we still sell on our store. We ship internationally. I just thought I'd do that bit of a plug. Colton Top Gun says, how long does it take for huge cheese manufacturers to make the cheese? Usually within a day. So they'll make the cheese, they will do whatever they have to do with it, and then put it into the ripening room or the cheese cave, and they do what they have to do with it. But yeah, manufacturers, because it's all automated, they will pump the cheese out in a day easy. Very similar to a home cheese maker, but on scale, massive scale. John says, thank you. Fever Pass says, can the recipes easily be scaled down? Are there any reasons advantage for a beginner to try small recipes? Yeah, look, I think the small recipes can be, recipes can be scaled down. That's the first question. So you can halve everything or quarter it or whatever. I tend to do that with some of the recipe books that I have ask for 16 litres or sometimes even 50 litres of milk. So I have to scale that back down. Use the milk as the base scale. So divide it by whatever the number is and then times the ingredient by that. So that's the way I do it. So the reason I would make small batches is because if you're first starting out and you're unsure of the process, then it's a good way not to waste too much milk if you don't get it right. That's the only reason I would think of. Larger cheeses, because we tend, once we've opened a cheese, we'll eat a quarter of it that day just to try it, just to see if it's okay. But yeah, it's Once you eat one, you go, oh, I wish I had made more. That's what we always say that. Matt says, when are you releasing your raclette video? Well, I'm hoping to release it this weekend, Matt, if the YouTube gods shine favourably on me. Because at the moment they've got this thing where I have to um, upload it as unlisted for 2 whole days, 48 hours. So their magical algorithm computer thing, AI, can scan it to make sure it's advertiser friendly, and then I can release it. So there's this whole make it 2 days before and let it sit there routine that YouTube's going through at the moment. With the Cheese Cave one that I made the other day, I let it sit there for a day, unlisted, and there were like 3 views on it. And I thought, oh, YouTube must have seen it. I released it, and then no more than 12 hours later, they demonetized the video. So I had to wait another 6 hours for a manual review to happen. So I lost like 6 hours of revenue, which, keeps my head afloat, the roof over above my head and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's very convoluted at the moment. We can all thank PewDiePie and, what's his name? Logan Paul, that clown. Anyway, I will continue on. I've only got, 4 minutes. My goodness. Damien, my wife and I found your channel the other day. It's great. Cathartic watch after a hard day's work. Keep it up. Thank you very much. Good on you, mate. Jason says, if feta has a burnt taste, you probably overheated your milk. Most definitely. Lara says, great videos, Gavin. Thank you, Lara. Watching you in the south of England. Hey, Kim's already said it. That's where she came from. Oh, my goodness. There we go. We've got mates for life. Okay, Joy, we made some of your cow's milk feta brined in 10% brine. It is good. Thank you so much for your feta recipes. Not too salty and good in a salad and on pizza. Yeah, I found that using that 10% brine really did make it a better cheese, because the very first feta I made it at 18% saturation, the brine, and it was just way too salty. Took it down to 10% because I did a bit of research on how the Greeks do it, and 10% seems to be right on the money. Okay, last few questions. To Boss said, I've been told that the fat had oxidized during the curd stage and tastes like that now. Is this true? Can I save it? Probably not. Fat doesn't, does it oxidize during the curd stage? I don't know. I've never come across that. What equipment do you need to create brine and make sure it is at the right percentage of salt? If you pop over to littlegreencheese.com, the link there is, I think there's a blog post about, there's a salt table. There's a table in the post about how much salt to put in to how many litres of water or quarts of water to make the right amount, right percentage of brine. You'll need a pot, water, salt. There you go. And a spoon to stir it. That's about it. Brine's easy. New England, hello, Wrench Turner. Okay, Kim's getting to know Lara. Nice. Melissa, my dad used to get Colby cheese with little white chunk. What are the little white? I think you mean the little white crystals. That is calcium lactate, and it is absolutely delicious. Some people go, oh, what's this stuff in my cheese? But little crunchy crystals of white stuff, calcium lactate. Absolutely delightful in aged cheese. Vizio says, hey, Gavin, thank you for the tour of the Cheese Cave. Made my day the other day. No problems at all. RS says, help Gavin. Font don't get a chance very often to catch your live streams. You're right on the tail end. Cole says, I like cheese. Good on you, Cole. Ken says, great wish. Melissa says, are you married? Yes. Kim is my wife. So watch out. She will have a go at you there. Cole says, what country do I live in? Can you tell by the accent? Honestly. Profity says, thanks for the nice cheese making videos, even though I don't like cheese. No problems. I've been told that I'm the Bob Ross of cheese making, with this lovely deep voice that I have. Matt says thanks. All right, Kim's putting up. She's telling me to roll up. So thank you for watching, everybody. Without you, the show would be nothing. Without these questions, it would be quite boring, I would think. I could ramble on to myself forever. But thank you so much for joining me today. We've had a peak of, looks like 57 viewers on and off, but we've had a lot more views than that. Thank you so much for visiting Ask the Cheeseman. Kim's putting up the merch link where you can buy cool mugs and T-shirts and stuff. There's a few there. And Patreon, don't forget that if you really like the show, then you can do that. Super Chat, we've got a little bit of time. If you wanted to throw some cash my way, that would be absolutely fantastic. Femelf says, I know it's the end, but have a great day. Of course. Thank you, Femelf. Don't forget to visit our shop, littlegreenworkshops.com.au, to pick up cheese-making supplies. We ship internationally, and usually it gets there faster than what your domestic ones would normally be there, because we use a good shipping method. Cheeseman, other boss. Yes, thank you very much, Ken. New Zealand, lol. Oh, you're hilarious, Jason. Yes, Australia. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks, MJ, for the subtitles. I really appreciate that. Yes, and if anybody could do any subtitles, that would be absolutely fantastic. I put links in every video. They're simple. I can't speak multiple languages. I can only do English. And I'll let YouTube do that. And don't forget to like this video so YouTube gets an engagement increase thing. And share it with your friends. If you've got friends that like cheese or are even thinking about making their own cheese, then share this or any of the other videos. That would be absolutely fantastic. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. our time here in Australia. That's GMT plus 11 at this stage. All right, see you next week.
Well, g'day, curd nerds. G'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds.